All right, boom, we're back.
Yeah.
Squeeze the Neck podcast, and today I am with the voice of Judo, Neil Adams. Thanks for doing this, mate.
It's an absolute pleasure.
So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you having me. Where are we today in the country? Rugby sort of way?
We are in Rugby, so we're on the, just on the, where the M1, M6 kind of meet. We're in between two villages, Catthorpe and Lilbourne. So yeah, as you saw, we've got the donkey sanctuary just out the back there. So we wake up early morning and have coffee and we have a nice setting. But this is the first time we've been able to go out. So the sun's out. Brilliant. And spring's just coming in.
That's it. The clocks are about to change and we're all back to normal.
Yeah,
but,
it'll be great, won't it?
It will be great. So we've had a coffee set outside. I feel like we've almost had a podcast before. And as I said to you, I started reading your book. I got 30, 40 pages in and thought, this is too interesting to read before I've actually met you and speak. So I'm going to, we'll talk today and then I'll crack on with the book. But before we get into anything, I got put onto you mostly through Ray Stevens. Shout out Ray, my judo coach. And we was talking before, I've been spoiled with like judo since I started. So I've been lucky enough to meet people like Ray, Lilu, Travis, Stevens, the best of the best, right?
Yeah,
and the reason I bring that up and the benefit for me is like, I can't have any ego in terms of like, I'm not going to cause them any problems. So I've got the ability to sort of take knowledge from them without trying, if that makes sense.
And I think also that you will recognise that all of those people, Jim Pedro as well, Travis,
course,
and Ray, I mean, they haven't got an ego, they're really down to earth and as down to earth as you can be, but as being as special as they are, and they're great people. And done some great things. But I think what is interesting about those kind of people is that they keep a level head, and it's difficult, because we do this thing where we go abroad and we're training full time. We are training to go to Olympic Games or World Championships, competitions all over the world, and you've just got one thing on your mind, you're this selfish athlete, that is just out there for yourself, really. And I remember, that when I look back now, I did a first biography called A Life in Judo. And it wasn't really a biography, it was just my early competition career. And when I read it now and I look at the way it was written, I kind of come over as a selfish kind of a guy. And I think that, that a lot of people will say, well, you had to be selfish, because that's what athletes do. They're a little bit into themselves and they, it's all about them. And sometimes, to get to the highest level, you've got to have a certain amount of that. And then, of course, you learn that you have to be, it doesn't last forever. And then, when it's kind of coming over the hill and you're looking at finishing, then you have to start to relate to everybody and relate to life, the real life, that's out there.
So when you start getting to that point of like your body can't do what it used to or whatever, or you're coming to the end of competition stuff, is that a bit of a heartbreaking period of time? Yeah. Difficult
for people to accept, I think. You do get to that stage where things that were, supposedly, so sometimes you'd think, well, this is great. I remember saying to my coach, I feel as if I can, just conquer the world, and I really did. I got to so well trained and I'd worked so hard at it, and I was the sharpest, that I had ever been. In some competitions I'd go into and I felt unbeatable, right. And then I remember coming to the end of it, like my third Olympic Games that I went to. It was my fourth cycle because I was first reserve for the 76 Olympic Games as well,
Okay.
So I wasn't far off going there, but I was just a young boy. But I was part of the cycle. And then, at Moscow, one of the favorites, and then Los Angeles, one of the favorites for it. And then the 88 Olympic Games, I kind of came back I was doing a year's teaching in France for my coaching, and I'd kind of semi-retired. And I was still on the game, and I was still competing with the top guys, and they went, you should do this, you haven't got that Olympic gold medal. It was the only thing that I hadn't quite got. And they said, you should do it. But I remember coming back and thinking, it's a great idea when we're all here talking and you're in the pub, and you go, yeah, that's a great idea, and the reality of it is a little bit different.
Right,
and you're out there and you think, there's something that's not quite the same.
As what it used to be.
Yeah,
with yourself.
It's not always the physical thing. The physical thing, we were just talking just out there. And so some of my best roundery years and practicing years were without pressure. So when I finished at 31, from 31 up to 40, I was practicing, with no pressures on me, and I could practice still with the best people in the world. But what I couldn't do is to do 5 minute, it was 5 and 7 minutes then, but I couldn't do 5 of those on the trot against world-class people.
Right.
And it's a little bit different, but on a one-off you'd be able to do it.
Did you think in these periods, like when you say 35, 36, was you starting to think, I'll go one more Olympics? Was there any of that in your mind?
Yeah, well, the thing is, at 35, 36 and 37, when you could still go out there and fight and train with some of the best, and when I started commentating, you'd be looking at them out there and thinking, what would I do? How would I do that? I could still beat him, and then...
Right.
And then kind of that fades, but you kind of get to a stage where then that it's impossible, and it's gone.
Right.
And but like you said, it is hard because the reality is that you feel at one stage in your life you feel as if you're untouchable, and then you realise that you're not. There's others and youngsters that are fighting hard and training hard, and they've got that extra little bit of snap and also, coordination, because you kind of lose the, because you've just started coming into judo. And one of the biggest things that I teach now is coordination between the hands and the feet. And if you haven't got that coordination between the hands and the feet, that's where the power comes from, is, getting that coordination, whether you're throwing to the front or to the back or with ashiwaza, with foot sweeps. The coordination, getting it right, is the key point. And so as you get older, all right, then it starts to go. So I could be practicing now, and I've got a guy that comes in, he started off as the best uke in the world, become a friend of mine. And Nikki said to him, and he does all the demonstration stuff with me, and, when I do filming. And Isaac, she had a word with Isaac. She said, you need to start doing a bit with him, because he's difficult to live with. And, and you need to do a little bit. And so behind closed doors, we get it on, and we still do some practice together. And, and sometimes I'm kind of talking to my feet, going, now would be a good time, to start. And trying to get them it's the same. Like for you, getting your feet to talk to your hands, or your hands to talk to your feet, and getting them working together, that's where you get your power, that's where you get your coordination. And it's the same when you get older, and it just kind of flips the other way. And
that's interesting. I've never heard it described like that before, but you're obviously still in great shape now. You're still training.
And I work out every day.
Right.
And I really enjoy being in good shape and being, but it's fit for what? What are you fit for? So when we started doing the judo, 2.5 minutes into the judo, and I was breathing through my backside, and I'm in the gym, no problem, and I'm doing circuits, and I'm doing rowing, and I'm doing, my running and stuff. No problems in the gym. But this is very sport specific. Judo is very sport specific. Any kind of grappling where you're one-on-one, you know what it's like. Jiu Jitsu, wrestling, judo, they're all sports where, you've got to do it. Yeah. And you've got to spar, and the more you spar and the more you get a partner and you're doing actual judo or wrestling or jiu-jitsu, then the fitter you get at that, and you can get people that can run marathons, wouldn't last a minute.
No, I think a lot of it's efficiency and mindset, right? Whereas like someone like yourself who's done judo for so long, you're not using as much effort as someone like me who's beginning, right?
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, I can, with somebody that's not got the skill, I can just coast.
Right.
But you get somebody with skill, you're breathing out your ass within a minute, right? It's the same.
That's true.
It's exactly the same, right? So if I was, if Jimmy Pedro and I went on and just started to, because it's intense, and you know, we'd both be breathing out of hard, probably.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it. It's an interesting way of looking at it, because I tell you what I notice as well when teaching is a bit of a side thing, is but like when people get better and you haven't seen them for a few weeks, and suddenly you go, I used to be able to do whatever I wanted. Now suddenly he's...
Well, that's exactly it. We did it. Isaac and I did it. We did our first. So we built up to 8 4-minutes, 8 times 4 minutes.
That's no joke.
That's not easy, right? So but then as we were going through, we were about 3-4 weeks in, and this one time we came on, we got 3-4 in. And I said to him, are we going, is this more intense? It was more, and it just ramped up, you know.
That's cool.
And so it was, and it was ramped up and it was a different pace.
Well, I tell you what I always like as well to see is people that are like past their competing years, but stay in shape. Like obviously, again, training with Ray, like he's still strong as a bull, and like when he's showing techniques, he can still do it. And I like to see that, because there's nothing worse than seeing someone that used to be and now they can't do anything. It's like what happened here, you know? But it's great to see for me.
Yeah, and it was really important for me that part of what I was training for was to be able to demonstrate, you know. So if I can literally get hold of, you and you can feel it, and you know, and then I show you how it should look, you know. Picture paints. It's worth 1,000 words. But I mean, it's true what they say. But I and also it's a great motivation for me to just stay in shape.
Right. And what age are you now?
I'm 67.
Yeah. See, 67-year-olds, they're like, go back when I was a kid, like 67-year-olds didn't look like that, did they? 67-year-olds look like an old man.
Yeah, and you know, so I'm one of the few fortunate people. I could still ring up now. I could pick up the phone and phone my dad. Right. Okay. Now, my dad is 93, coming up 94. And he's still on his bike 3 times a week.
Is that right?
Yeah. And so it is different now, you know. And the thing is that, like, for him, he got a bit of an injury. And I can speak to him. It's like I was speaking to him 45 years ago.
That's cool.
You know, it's not a quivering voice or anything like that. My dad still sounds the same. And, you know, obviously slowing down a little bit, you know, but important that he keeps the wheels rolling, you know, and actually it's when you stop, you know. But the beauty of our sport and what we do, and, you know, with all the different, and especially if you get a good partner, right? So, I mean, for you to have a good partner that works with you and gives a little bit, and also, you know, so you have a rip up, you know, you can still have a go and do your practice and your sparring, but actually learning the skills, you need somebody who gives.
It's priceless, isn't it, to have a good partner? Because if you've got, like, again, like when I've been to other judo classes where it's like you're going with someone who's been doing it maybe a year and they're not that proficient, but they've only been grappling a year total. Like where I've got more experience grappling, it's like, sometimes it's like, I'm fighting myself to go to old tricks that aren't judo. Do you know what I mean? To sort of get an advantage.
Well, you revert to what works.
Exactly. And then when you go through these positions and then you switch rounds and you've got someone who's a really good partner, it's almost like, that's better. Like, and they, you know, they're putting the foot in the right place, they're helping you out. It's priceless. But let's go back a step, if you don't mind. Like, how did you get into judo? Was your dad a judoka?
Dad was a judoka, and he was cyclist first of all. And then he got into judo, loved his judo. And then I remember him taking my brother and me to judo and a small club in rugby here, and then we weren't here for long. It was just too small. But then we went into Coventry, and Coventry was my main club until I was 16. 16, I moved to London because that's where most of the British team were training there.
Was you special straight away? Was you good at judo instantly?
Yeah, I kind of knew straight away. Like, so it was really strange because I did team. I like soccer, and I used to play a bit of soccer, and I used to think, you know, I was pretty good. And I went for a trial, and it was a Coventry City Youth, and there was a couple there that were just, you know, running rings around, you know, and I thought, you know, that's never going to be that good, right? So never going to be that good. And with the judo, it was one of those where I was like really individual, and I loved the fact that I was on my own and it was down to me, and I just clicked fairly quickly. I was like, it didn't take me long, and it's something that I've always had from like 7, 8 years of age, right the way through, and I can look at something, assess it, and and then make it work, and because I'll work it in a certain way, make it my own, and so I think my dad realised. He kind of looked and he went, he's got something,
Right.
So I won my first nationals at kind of 10 years of age, junior nationals, kids nationals. And and then it all kind of grew from that. And then at 16, I remember my first. We didn't have junior internationals there. The first time you could fight internationally was at cadet level, which was under 18. And then I remember, excuse me, I remember going out to Israel. It was the European Championships cadets, juniors, under 20s, and cadets. And I remember that was the first time I met Gamba, who I fought in the final of the Olympic Games, and all these guys were there. I'd never, ever been treated with, because I'd come through all these junior national, I was the best for 5 consecutive years, and, I thought this was my world, right?
Right.
I thought that was it, and then I got people that were equally as, disdainful about me, and just they were just as determined and training as hard, and then I realized then there was other levels.
Right.
That was my big one, really. And within 3 I remember 18, so it happened very quickly from and 18 is early, too early for us, for men, because I was quite a slow developer as well, but physically, but mentally I was a really good developer. I developed quite quickly. And then I had a really big, I remember I went to my first senior European Championships at 18 and fought the Olympic champion second match, Russian guy, and fought him second match. And I was really close. I had him, I'd like really worried, because he was coming out just throwing people, and he was quite a bit in front of everybody, and I was a junior just coming through, and of course he didn't know who I was, right? So, but I watched him panic, and I felt it. He was like panicking. There's a really great picture of me and him fighting, and I'm in this judogi that's too big. It's not, his is all made to measure, and it's like, and he looks like he's got all the stance, and I'm just like, I look like one of these horses that's just slightly off balance and a bit, awkward. And but I had good balance and masses of determination and really good feel for defense as well, because a lot of the good fighters as well, they're not just good at attacking, they're really good with their defense. And we just talked about there, yeah. And that kind of came, so I was getting off his big, massive techniques, and then I threw him, and he was behind for a bit, and then he was panicking. And so 18, I lost to him. It was just like really, really close. And then he won his, and then he retired. He was gone, and then I won the Europeans the next year. All right, so yeah, he finished. I'd like to think it was because of me, right? But he finished. But
that's interesting. So at 18, what weight are you competing at this point?
That was 71 kilograms then, which is 73s now, right?
Okay.
So 71 kilograms. It was just different weight settings. But then I like for Moscow Olympic Games, I was halfway in between the weights.
And was
that
the
one
78?
And the lower one, 78 kilograms. And I was halfway between. And that year, 1980, was the year that I went in every competition at the higher weight category. All right, because I was preparing for it, the transfer over. Including the European Championships. So the previous year I'd won the Europeans at 71 kilograms, and then I did 78 kilograms and won the Europeans at the higher weight category.
Okay.
And but I was only kind of 76 kilos at the time, 75, 76. But then what happened was the seedings were different then for Olympic Games, and they took it off the previous World Championships. And the previous World Championships, which was 2 years before, I was at 71 kilograms.
Right.
So going into an Olympic Games, seeded is imperative.
It is, okay.
If you want to win, if you want to go in, and Teddy Riner, I've seen some of the greatest, Hifum Abe, she went in as an outside, like she thought that she could just go in as an outside seed, plop anywhere, and then just, so far above everybody else that just win it. But if you draw the wrong person, and it might be just somebody that's just not quite right for you, or it might be just two on the trot, two hard ones on the trot that and you don't get your rhythm. And it happened twice to those two, right? So this Olympics, and it happened, I dropped my weight because I thought I'd want to go seeded. And I would have gone to the Olympic Games unseeded at that Olympics.
Right.
If I'd have gone in the higher weight.
Was that a mistake?
Yeah, massive.
Yeah, it was.
Huge. And so I went through all of my matches at the Olympics up to the final, scoring Ippon. So everyone, and then the one fight that went time, I was just kind of trying to get into the rhythm, and then I was half a step behind, lost the split decision in the final. And it was the only match I'd lost in the whole year. So the only match I lost in that year was the final of the Olympic Games on a split decision.
Damn. So I'll tell you, this might sound like a silly question, but like when you're going to the Olympics, you're going for gold, right? You're not there to make up numbers.
So that's why, like for me, for certainly those two Olympics, 80 and 84, you see massive disappointment, and actually that's a massive, to see how people react when they have that measure of disappointment, and people can look at them and say, they need to get their head up, and they need to, present themselves in the right way. But it's disappointment,
Right.
It is like when you're going for gold. But then on the other side of that, you have people that never expect it, especially in Olympic Games. People don't expect to get medals, and they get a medal, and it's the best thing ever.
Right.
Doesn't matter what color, right?
Right.
Prime example was the Tokyo Olympic Games. Tokyo Olympic Games was behind closed doors because of COVID, right? Well, Olympic Games throws up all sorts of different pressures, right? So people that are favourites coming into the Olympic Games with the crowd and crowd expectation, their expectation, everything on, and they don't perform. But people coming into the Olympic Games with no pressure on them at all. It's like doing an Olympic Games in here. So we do our first fight, all right, and we've got nobody shouting for us, right? It's just me and you in here, all right, and we get it sorted. So you're going to get different. So we had different Olympic champions. Because
even at that level, that
absolutely, 100%.
Wow,
100%.
Was you there for the Tokyo Olympics?
Oh, I commentated.
That's what I mean. Even
so I was commentating the Tokyo Olympic Games, right? And it was like doing it behind closed doors.
Do you always have to be quiet in case they hear you? So you quit commenting like under your breath.
No, but and that's the thing, right? Because I am loud when I do it, right? I am loud, and I get and it's like that. But we were in there. There was a janitor walking his dog at the top end there, and nobody else, it was, and just the team manager.
Crazy that at the Olympics.
Just crackers.
And it was a year late as well, right? It was not just behind closed doors. That upset the cycle a bit from what I hear from some sports. Because it was in 2021, wasn't it? Even though it was 2020.
Yeah, upset the cycle as well, because, it was, 3 years.
Yeah.
It was an extra year.
Well, because I was listening to, I think his name's Gable Stevenson, you know what I'm talking about? Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. He was on Joe Rogan, and he was saying that if it had been the right time, like when it's supposed to be, he don't think he'd have won the gold. He wasn't ready.
Because some are developing, right? Yeah. So some so we've got some now. We were just talking about Nen. Right, and there's him, and we've got two now at the same weight category. 3 actually. There's 3 in the same weight category. Just broken that glass ceiling at the top level, right? So, and they'll carry on. This won't stop now. They've got the ability, and they'll carry it on. Yeah. And we've already got one in the final in Georgia now. So the highest level, they're going to crack it. Anyway, so people like him, it's not quite. So if the Olympics was going to happen now, probably not quite the right time, but 2 years down the road,
Ready.
When they've established, chance.
Yeah, well,
chance
that's
of a medal.
interesting. Yeah.
All right, but then it works the other way round, right? So somebody at the end of their career, way at the end. So we've got Rafaela Silva, who's been at the top, won Olympic Games in 2012,
right?
And then just won the Paris Grand Slam just last week, right?
Wow. Okay.
And she's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. And I said in the commentary, I said, I bet she wishes the Olympic Games was now.
And how old is she?
She's 35.
Okay. Is that old for judo, is it?
Yeah.
Don't say that, you're breaking my heart. I'm hoping to get into an Olympic cycle.
But that's the thing, you know, it's not old. Of course it's not. But and also, you're like, so she's been doing it a long time. You haven't, right? So you could probably, you know, it wouldn't matter. I mean, you're physically still in great shape, you know, and as long as you've got no injuries, right? The 35 is good. She's had quite a few injuries. She's been there a long time. She won world titles 11 years apart.
That's incredible. When you hear it like that, flat on paper, 11 years apart, that's mental.
That's mental, right? And that doesn't happen. Doesn't happen for her. So if she had the Olympic Games now, she's got to keep it going for another 2 years, right?
Right, that's
interesting.
interesting. Well, I tell you, because like sport at the highest level, when you see people what they go through and the way they train, like it goes past healthy, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like it's not healthy to be doing that to your body. No. Whereas judo is, if I said to you, right, I'm going to start judo, Neil, I'm going to do it 3 times a week and I'm going to look after my body. Yeah. It's a healthy thing to do. But like if I said I'm 18 and I said to you I'm going to the Olympics, it crosses that line, doesn't it? And that's what damages people.
I think that's a really great way of looking at it because it does cross the line, you know. And I think that definitely, you know, like, you know, the hip operations and of knees and, you know, shoulder. The worst injury I ever had was a shoulder, you know, and each injury was a motivation for me to get better and to train, you know, through it and to work out ways that I can get through it to become stronger. But you're right, it crosses the line. It's not healthy. You can't call it healthy. No. You know, when you've, you know, Nikki, my wife, always says that, you know, when they dig me up in 100 years' time, they'll say a nice ashtray, you know, because there's so much metal in there. You know what I mean? It's just just so much metal in there. But you know, actually, the big massive advantage I have is that I've got a great heart, you know, and everything else is healthy, you know, my mind's healthy and so we have a good life, and so that's a great thing. You know, my dad is still in good shape. He didn't do judo at a great, you know, he just did the cycling, low impact.
Right. That's what,
great, isn't it? You know,
that's funny to hear that. Yeah, but like, okay, let's go back to like the Olympics. You've come home from the Olympics. I'm assuming from what you've said already, like for most people, an Olympic silver medalist is a great achievement. For you, was you disappointed? Was you coming home like,
Oh yeah, I was devastated. Yeah, I was devastated. You know, lost that one on a split decision. Then you know, you back into training then, and then I was European champion the year after, and then you know, so everything was back on track, and you know, there was no talk about finish. I was just at the beginning of
what
it.
What age
really.
are you at this point?
20.
Oh, so you're like a baby in reality.
Yeah, just 20 and or 20, 21. It's just still very young in my mind, and you know, everything's still early. But and then 84 Olympic Games, you know, I'd established, and then I came in as kind of European champion and world. I'd won the world title, and then got silver in the worlds, lost on a split decision in world final 2 years later than that. But so then came into the Olympic Games as one of the favourites.
And are you up in weight at this point?
I was up.
You've gone to 78
straight after the Olympics. I was
straight
up,
away, yeah.
Because all that year I was up.
Right.
So really, the mistake was dropping down to the other weight. You know, now that I look at it, but I can see why we did it.
Right.
You know, would I make a different decision now? Yeah, probably.
You would, yeah.
Yeah, I would. Well, everybody that was on the rostrum, I beat in the European Championships.
Wow, that's tough, isn't it? That's tough to take.
And
I'll tell you one thing that comes to mind. I've spoke to Owen Livesey. Do you know Owen Livesey?
Yeah, I know
You're
Owen.
right. Yeah, he's been on the podcast. Yeah. Shout out, Owen. I hope you're well, mate.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, I can't remember, you'll know better than me, obviously, but he was telling me about, like, it is a 4-year ordeal. It's not just you can change and chop and change. You've got to make the points and whatever else.
You've got to make the points, you've got to do the qualification, and, you know, it's different qualification now. It's harder probably for them to qualify now. in is that they've got to do it. They get so many points. So like a lot of them will get early points, and then they can kind of pick and choose.
Oh, okay.
But then you've got the ones that are just outside of that level, are just scratching to get every point to qualify. All right. So, it's kind of a two-way thing. But it is hard because you are looking for every point that you can get. Every point counts.
Yeah, right. And to get to the Olympic Games in itself, again, like I've spoken to other people that like turning up to the Olympics is almost like their gold medal, right?
Yeah.
They've made it, they've got here.
Yeah.
But someone like yourself, you're going there for golds. Like that's a different thing.
It's a different. I mean, like Nikki will tell you that when she went to the Olympics, she was glad to get there, and she had an Olympic meltdown at the Olympics. Just like sometimes you can come out there. It's how you cope with that kind of pressure. Some of us, and I saw your interview with Ray, and Ray and I, he's one of my best friends, but he was my training partner for 2 Olympic Games, and I know a lot. He knows a lot of the things that we kind of went through building up to the Olympics, and I saw that when he was saying to you that getting into the right mindset was, so important. And actually, you can lose it just not by being in the right mindset.
Right.
Great physically.
Yeah.
Everything there, you know what I mean? And if you don't hit it right, you know what I mean? And I think that sometimes I remember coming out 84 tired.
Right, okay.
Tired.
Yeah.
Really tired, and once you have things creeping into your mind, like, I just need a rest, and that's not what you want, that's not the, so actually, I think we do it a lot better now. We've got a lot of psychologists. Sometimes I think it's gone a bit too much the other way, you know what I mean? And there's no substitute for for mat work, all right? And the controlling the things that control you, I think, are the important things that we have to look at, So when you're younger, it might be relationships, or it might be something at home, or you've got, a problem with money, or it's normally all those things that drive us all mad, don't they? Right. You know what I mean? And and so we have to look at how we control those factors, because they're the factors that in the end do decide. I mean, I've had competitions I've come in with a clear mind. Right. Then I've had competitions when I've come into them, with a woolly head, and things on my mind that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I tell you what I've heard as well from certain high-level athletes as well is there's sort of an element of ignorance is bliss. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know till you know. So because you're not thinking about it, because whether it's, I don't know, the arrogance of youth or whatever, you can show up and just sort of get on with things, and you're not seeing the sort of the next step. Whereas I think as you get older and a little bit wiser, you can sort of fall into the worry about step 2, 3, 4, and you ain't even got past step 1 yet. Is there an element of that?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think that we do. We get a little bit wiser, don't we? And and I think that that attitude of not thinking of anything else other than yourself, at some stage it goes, and I think that that we when we just rock up and we get on the plane and then we get there and we say, well, which hotel? They take you to the hotel and you drop you off. When am I fighting? When you're fighting, three fights and you're on. Go and warm up, do this, that. And then when you got to think for yourself and you got to start thinking about making money and and then when you get somebody else in your life, and then it's down to relationships and you're not just thinking of you. I mean, my great leveler was, obviously, I mean, I've got a great home life and kids are amazing, and all of them, and my grandkids as well. Just great. And you have they're the most important things in my life. Now. Then I realised, that the sport was absolutely important. It's still really so important to me because, like sometimes I'll say to Nikki, who is also an Olympian, and sometimes I'll say, when we're at home, we don't talk about judo. And she'd go, yes, we do. Yes, we do. We're talking about it all the time. She said, you're a fanatic, and I still am, because it's in my heart, right. Which is why when I do the commentary, when I'm commentating it, I'm in there with them, and I just believe it, and I love it. I do love it. And so that's why, when somebody's not doing it proud, then I get upset a little bit.
But you can see that, like talking to you now, when I talk about judo, it's like the passion. Like some people get like, not bored if it's the wrong way, but they're sort of over it a bit. Sometimes like they've been at such a high level, once they've left it behind, it's almost like a previous life. Whereas doesn't seem the case for you at all.
No, it's not. And I am, you know, so the early kind of like saying to Nikki, that we don't talk about it when we're at home, and we, some of the interviews that we've done before, and she corrected me, and she just went, yes, we do. We talk about it all the time, and we're always showing different videos, and we have a passion, but we also have our things, with our family, which is just brilliant. We do our other things, and we like kayaking, and we do we have great fun, but I do still have that passion for it, and I do when I go away, and I if I see that somebody's not, when it was going in a bad way, I thought it was going in a bad way. I thought the rules were dictating it. Rules always dictate development, always, and I thought it was going in a wrong direction. And it was certainly going more towards just standing work. And if you have a look at Jigoro Kano, when he developed it about 125 years ago, he put a whole sequence together of different fundamental principles, and and the ethics of judo and how it should be. And actually, they that's really important that we keep that, because it makes us different. It makes us different to any other sport.
Right, and I think it's important also because there's an element of, as time goes on, people think we're smarter and we know more, right? Whereas in reality, sometimes things are laid down for a reason, right? And the sport developed the way it is because of.
Well, I see low, like beginners level all the way up, and I'm teaching, beginners level right the way up still, and. Actually, the requirements are the same, So we were talking about hands and feet working together and getting those working. It's the same, lower level, higher level. Like if the coordination's not there, different reasons for it, right? So at higher level, you learn good defense. We were talking about Lloyd Mayweather, and actually I see him with ringcraft. He was calling it ringcraft, and actually just his movement, just being in the, just out of reach of, somebody coming across, and just out of reach makes you reach, and then bang, and then so that kind of counter attack stuff is a real skill. And I was looking at the Abbe's and Ono and some of the greatest throwers in the world, Teddy Riner, really good defense as well. Right. They know how to put the body in the wrong place, and they know it's not just about us facing up to each other and then grabbing and then going for it. Right. There's the ringcraft to it.
Well, I'll tell you what's a benefit as well, I think, for me, where I've learnt judo with a grappling background from someone at such a high level like Ray. I've gone there to learn it, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Not to sort of try what I do and see where it goes, because I wanted to learn from Ray. But the fundamentals are so important with everything, right? And I was like, you related to boxing there. Like, I was lucky enough to do a session recently with Roy Jones. I don't know if you're aware of Roy Jones.
Yeah.
We didn't even put boxing gloves on, by the way.
You didn't.
It was all step this way, move this way, when you punch, when you... And he's just showing you things. And you're like, I've boxed for nearly 20 years. And when you're going like... I've learned more in this last half hour than I have, and it was incredible. So when you see the fundamentals, the top guys, they do the fundamentals just at an extreme level, right?
And they're extremely good at it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And they make it look easier, and it isn't.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And actually, they make it look easy because they've done it so many times, and and it's kind of a natural thing to them now, and that's, of course, the interesting thing about teaching. When you're teaching, you can't just assume that people, that everybody can do. You've got to sometimes go back.
That's interesting.
You've got to wind it back sometimes. And it's quite interesting because I'm just doing some work with the visually impaired. Judo at the Paralympics is visually impaired. Right, it's either totally blind or it's visually impaired. So they have all different, like some are blind and deaf as well.
Wow. Okay.
Excuse me. And so I have them here. They come here. We've got world champions and we've got Paralympic champions. And so they come here and we do technical work. They are just so aware of where you are and so if they can't see, then the other senses come in. It's quite amazing how good they are adapting.
Right.
And and then really lovely lady that is blind and deaf. You know, so that was a great challenge for me. And you know, we've got staff, British judo staff, that are amazing. They work with these athletes all the time, and that's very much on touch and feel. You know, and because you have to get across to them what you want. You know, I want you to do this, and actually, so they have a mind's eye as to what it looks like.
Right.
You know, you can't just do it. You know, so if I want you to look at something, I'll show you something, and you go, that I'm going to do that. You know.
Yeah. Right.
Not if you can't see.
Well, coaching itself's a skill, isn't it?
Yeah,
Aside from being at a high level of judo, what you was, like the ability to get the point across. Because I've worked with other people as well, and like, no names, obviously, but like certainly in boxing, that have boxed at such a high level, and and they're trying to show you it, and they're going, you just punch and move, and you're like,
just do it like
well,
this.
that don't really explain it. You're just good at it. Do you know what I mean? Like to find a good coach.
You haven't really explained. Yeah.
There you go.
And people learn different ways. You know, so I mean, some people are visual learners, some are touch. So I might get hold of you, and then you feel it, and you go, okay, they've got it. And then sometimes, you know, to see it done fast, you know. So I do a lot of whole part whole. So I'll show you the whole thing, and then I'll break it down for you, and then put it all together for you, you know. And yeah, it is a skill, and it's very, very interesting, you know, with the different physical disabilities as well, you know. So I had one lady that was in a wheelchair. So these things behind us here, I don't know, you can't see it, but we've got skimmers, you know, to practice foot sweeps. I'll show you afterwards. And so we had one woman that didn't, you know, have any use of her legs, you know, was using her hands to feel it. It was quite remarkable, but yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, and I tell you what's interesting to me when I speak to people, but like the patience you must have, because like, again, where you've competed at a high level, for you it's like foot sweep, it's like, just do what I'm saying. But like for most people, like if I come into you as a grown man and I'm not doing it right, that's got to be quite hard, right?
The thing is that for me it's all about the golden nuggets, right? So if you walk out of here today, now, with one or two things, right, that get you thinking, right, then I've done my job, right? Okay. And so that is the key point, right, is that the golden nuggets and watching that light go off, you know, like you go, I never thought of it like that. And then you've done your job, right? And so whatever seminars I do, and most seminars, so I get different seminars. So somewhere, like we have a group of 8 here, it's very specific coaches, low-level coaches. So then you can hit it specifically for low-level coaches teaching fundamental principles. If I have a group of coaches that are GB, performance coaches, then you incorporate the rule set and what they're going to incorporate, you know, get when they're out abroad, and you know, different right against left, different stance, you know, and different gripping strategies, and you go high level. I get beginners coming in, and you know, it's fundamentals, right? I get advanced, so I've had Olympic champions and Olympic medalists in there with me, and they're asking very specific certain things, right? And then it's feel, actually, because you can look at something and think, oh, I do this, and I put my hand here, and I do this, and this leg goes here. But what you can't see is when somebody's good at it, and you know it because you're a grappler, right? But you get somebody demonstrate on you, all right, and they'll have pressure on you all the time, and you feel your arm going out there, and you know, and you lift up your head there, and they've got the, you know, you've fallen into their trap, right? And so it's at different levels, you know, but it's all about golden nuggets, and it's all about, you know, that magic moment, you know, where you go, right, you know. And actually, I always, with all of my students, so I had at one stage I had 22 full-time students when I was in Coventry. I had a dojo there.
Wow, okay.
And they won, I think they won, it was about 38, 40 kind of British senior titles between them. And, you know, they were this was a really
serious
great,
crowd, yeah.
A serious group. When they came in, they were all different levels. I didn't cherry pick the best. I cherry picked the ones that were going to work hard for me.
Right.
And they knew that, right? And I said, give me 10 that are going to give me 100%. You know, I'm not talking about natural ability. I'm talking about somebody who's going to give me 100%. And I said, my promise to you is that I'll make you better. Mm-hmm. That's my promise.
Simple as that.
That's it.
Yeah. It's interesting because I tell you what, again, working with Ray, like learning judo from him, is it's like, it's not an overload. It's not like this is judo, this is everything you need to know, see you next time. There's very much like we work on bits and pieces and it's like we hone in on things. And I feel like that's such a benefit to someone like me who's learning as a bare bones beginner, as a grown man. You know, like you come in and like it's easy to go to a class and they just throw something at you and it's like... what did I learn? Nothing. But like you said, the golden nuggets of taking away. I learned something very simple today of like where to put my hips as an example. And it's like, but I'll keep that. I'll retain that. And that will help me next week. So I think there's a benefit to that. But I tell you, I keep jumping around with you. But one thing I wanted to know as is like conditioning and stuff before I forget. Like when back in the day, because in your book, I think you said it was quite advanced and you was doing sort of more modern things. Yeah. But like, when you go back, like you was what, full-time at judo at what age? When did you start? Full-time, I was down in the Budokai at 16 years of age, and then full-time, I had to work then, but as full-time as I could get, but I wasn't as full-time as I was from 20 years of age. Like, so 18, 19, 20, then I was starting to get really serious. Right. I remember, then I remember Ray, you know, like, so Ray, I fought Ray, I think he was a junior coming through, and I fought him in the British Championships. And then he came up to me and he said, you know, could I come and join in some of your training sessions, right? And I said, well, I need, to be honest, I need somebody who's going to be there all the time, never let me down, always there, and somebody's going to push me. And he said, I'm that guy, you know, I'm that. Within 8 weeks, I said, all right, we'll try it and we'll see, you know, and he was the same weight as me as well, right? So you know, I didn't mind that, right? But I knew he'd improve quickly. Anyway, within 8 weeks, condition-wise, everything, he just went like that. I mean, like that. And then I went, you know, almost time for him to move up to the next weight. Oh,
right?
okay,
yeah. Which happened, right? Quite naturally. Anyway, he started, but he just improved so much so. And then we were pushing each other, you know, physically and through, you know, all the physical training. He was, you know, we were benefiting from the skills. We became, you know, partners. It was amazing, and I built a special friendship from it, you know. That's brilliant. Like, obviously, I've been lucky, as I said, to like Ray just happens to be close to me, an Olympic silver medalist that I get to train with, like do sessions with. That came later, right? You know, but that came off the back of what we were doing, you know, because he was special, you know, and had a special, and he was injured with that Olympic silver medal, you know what I mean? He was really injured. Yeah. But you know, so everything that he did in the past, you know, that before that, kind of led up to the possibility. And like I said, Olympics, anything can happen. Right, yeah. And it's all on one day as well, I believe, right? All on one day, which is crazy, isn't it? Like for a lot of people to think... one mistake. Yeah, it's over. And also, like that's where the seeding would come in, I imagine, because you can have hard matches early and your opponents had easier matches. Yeah, and you know, there's no such thing as an easy run, but it can be easier. Right. And even, you know, the great champions, like, so two that I said to you, Abe, Uta, and also Renair for the Tokyo Olympics. Was it Tokyo or the one after? But they went in unseeded, and both of them came unstuck. Man, and even at them guys that are that special, they both still come unstuck. Even at their and Abe Uta was like head and shoulders. Was he? Like she. Sorry. So she was head and shoulders above anybody in the category. Like, if you were going to put a bet on anybody being a dead cert for a gold medal at Olympic Games, she was it. Wow. And she drew the one woman that was probably, if she fell into, like, the right moment on the ground, could have, like, snatched it. But the one woman who could have possibly, anyway, drew her first fight, right? so she dropped right next to her, because she came in as an unseen. So the other one, Abaginova, she was number 1 seed. She pulled her first fight. So she comes out, whacks her over for Wazari, just all over her. Stood just in the wrong place, wrong bump like that, got taken back, Ippon, like that. She just didn't know how to react. She was screaming on the mat, screaming. You're talking about, this is a Japanese, right? And it's screaming, just, wind it back, let's go again, kind of attitude, right? Too late.
Too late.
It was Ippon as well. It was no doubt Ippon, right? She just got taken back. Wow. She came in off a bump like that, just caught her at the right time, right? You can call it 1,000 to 1 chance or 100 million to 1 chance, whatever it is, and she got done and she was out.
That's got to be hard to take, right? When you're so overwhelming.
Well, they had to drag her, so the coach had to carry her out. Really? They should have escorted her out. This is Olympic Games, right? Yeah. So all platform, nobody round the mat area. It was all focus on this that was going on. This was drama,
And has this lady got an Olympic gold medal before this?
Yeah, she was the Olympic champion.
She was already champion, yeah.
And her and her brother both won Olympic gold medals same day. Wow. And world titles same day.
Okay.
And they were both, and he regained his title at the Olympics, and she first match. And then she came back, won the worlds,
So it can happen, can't it?
She's still favourite for the next ones.
Right, okay.
Without
so she's
a doubt,
still going, okay.
She's still going, yeah. And still favourite, but people are getting closer.
Right, exactly, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you one thing as well. I don't know if it applies as much. I was going to say it applies to much to judo, but YouTube generation now, right? I can pull up a million clips of anyone now and just watch them box, watch them do anything. Yeah. So back in the day, when you was training and stuff, I'm assuming you didn't have much access.
We kind of started with it.
Oh, did?
We had VHS, everything, so we had people putting together, but it was a lot harder to get to, you had to go and play rewind and different, but we had it. I mean, I did research. I researched everybody. I mean, I did a lot of research.
Oh, you did?
I even had the referees nailed, so I'd know how the referee was going to play the rules. Every referee that came out at top level, I'd know, whether they were a bit light on the edge or if they give me more time in ground, and when they call mate and when they would stand us up, I knew the referees as well as the fighters. But you're right. I mean, we can go on now. We can, on Judo TV, we go on. You can just go on to any Grand Prix, Grand Slam, any match you want.
Yeah.
And also, it'll have when the score was done. You could just go directly to it, and it would just show you.
Yeah, so you can spoil it for choice now.
Honestly.
Yeah. But if you go back, what age did you come to London? Was it 16? You came
16
down?
to London, and then that was where most of the world Olympic medalists from Great Britain were. Mm-hmm. We hadn't had a world men's champion. We had an Olympic silver medalist, Olympic medalists, but they were all training at the Budokai.
Right.
Same
right?
place.
Yeah, it was all there together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's training look like when you first come down? I'm sure it obviously evolved over the years, but when you started becoming when you've just come down, when you've gone full time, what's sort of a typical week? Are you 2-3 times a day?
That was hard, yeah. I mean, I was, 2-3 times a day. I was running everywhere. I didn't have any money, nothing at all, and so I was running to practices and, and then relying on people, sending me money down. Mum and Dad were great, and then I got this job just stacking shelves and just doing everything I could just to train and be able to do the judo. Did as much judo as I could. Didn't know much around. I did quite a lot of work with a physical trainer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the physical trainer was taught me a lot. We wrote books as well together, and so I got a lot from this guy who was ahead. We were ahead of the game, So I mean, it was carefully worked out. It was, a lot of the training schedules that you see now. We were doing it 35, 40 years ago. And
really?
Yeah, really. It wasn't just rock up and do it. It was a lot of muscular endurance work, but it was set out so that it was, it was peaking, the peaking was specific.
So you're way ahead of your time back then, right?
We were ahead of the time. I think a lot of the, if you have a look at people like Coe and Ovet and stuff like, the people that were winning Olympic gold medals, they were doing the same.
Oh,
they were.
Because I know guys now that compete at a high level of combat, and all they do really, you go, would you do conditioning? Yeah, I'll do some sit-ups and push-ups. Still today, and I go, that's kind of nuts.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and especially something like our sport, which is, which is very, and I'm talking about grappling, anything grappling. If you're not conditioned to grip up with somebody, ours, like the difference between the wrestling and freestyle, because I'm very fortunate and I love it that I've commentated the last 2 Olympic Games. I've done all the freestyle and Greco-Roman Olympic finals.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've commentated all the and Commonwealth Games as well. I did all the finals, every one of them, Greco-Roman and freestyle, and so really got to understand. I think that with the single, double legs and stuff like that. Some of the guys, amazing, unbelievable, great grapplers. When they took away the leg grabs for judo, they took away the leg grabs and everybody was up in arms. Actually, it was the wrestlers that were up in arms because they wanted to do both.
Is that right? Okay. So they're just essentially wrestling with a gi on in the judo.
Exactly, right. Okay. And I didn't want that. And I think that the judo didn't want that because we did, and it was very bent over and the rules were kind of allowing it to happen. And so you got a lot of the, when the Uzbeks and the Kazakhs and the Mongolians and the Georgians and everybody started coming in, and they're doing a lot of wrestling stuff coming into judo, and we're kind of losing our identity. So they just took away the leg grabs, and then of course the wrestlers would go, well, we need to be able to come in. Which you can still come in, but you'll have to learn how to do the uchimata and the taitoshes and learn the fundamental principles of kazushi and breaking balance and how the jacket works. And it's different.
Yeah, well, I'd say that's one thing, again, like where I've started judo, I really enjoy is like the subtle, I don't know if you'd call them subtle details, but the little things that are like, wow, powerful movements that are like, they're not physically powerful, they're just little sort of guiding things that I've been shown. Not I'm telling you judo, obviously, but like the little things I've been shown where you're like, that's ridiculously like effortless that you've able to move me free foot that way,
And if you do it with movement, and also, so I was talking to you about the hands talking to the feet, and when you get the hands working, like, so they talk about kazushi. Kazushi is breaking a balance, and I'll show you a bit later on, right? When we do this, we'll do a little, just one throw, but I'll show you. But the kazushi works differently if I throw you backwards than it works coming forwards, or if I take you with ankle sweeps or any kind of foot sweeps. It works differently. It's but you still have to have the hands working, and the biggest advantage that we have is that we can control it, really control it through the jacket.
Right.
That's why when you see international judo, they're breaking off the grips because they immediately feel the danger. When somebody gets hold of you and they dominate the grip, it's coming.
Right.
You feel it, right? You go, I'm just about to go up there, right? I'm going to go into the air here, right? And you know it. And that's why they immediately go defensive mode like that. That's why their backside goes out.
Right.
Because they know they feel it.
Yeah.
And that's why in the commentary I'll go, it's not just what we see, right? It's what you feel. So as soon as you grab hold of somebody or somebody grabs hold of you and you go, you were on about somebody who grabbed you and got hold of your, Travis Stevens, right?
Sorry, yes, seminar, yes.
So you said Travis Stevens, right? He grabbed me and you just went, danger, right? So danger. Yeah. You felt the danger.
I said, when he put his hand on my lapel during this seminar, and bear in mind, he's teaching part of a seminar, so it's not like he's grabbing me. He just sort of gripped it.
You felt it immediately.
And I was like I couldn't possibly get that back until he let me.
No way.
Do you know what I mean? That's his till he says so. It was crazy. But like the subtle things of, and I think it's all grappling arts in their own way to a degree, but certain little subtle things I've experienced being around judo. Yeah. And it's like, it is that little, no danger at all to major danger, I'm going to get thrown on my head, you know.
And what's the first thing you do in major danger is you stick your backside up.
Stiffen up
and you stiffen up, right? Okay, and that stops you as well, you know. So as soon as you stiffen up, actually the worst people to fight are the ones who are fairly soft on the hands.
Right, is that right? Yeah, they're the ones that cause you
the worst ones,
you
know, because you don't know where it's coming, and but you will feel the change in the hands, you know. But,
Right, and you've come over from the Olympics, the second one now, silver medal, right? So, like, where's your mindset at? Is it going to the next one, or are you
well, other than, you know, just going home and burying myself, I think that you just, you know, 2 Olympic Games and 2 silvers and 2, you know, could have, like, one of them split decision, and then had a world title fight as well, that you know, final that went split decision, which I thought I'd won. That particular one I thought I'd won.
Right.
I'd done enough. Anyway, and I'm not would have, could have, should have kind of guy. I'm really not, you know what I mean? You take your losses and you kind of learn from them. We always hear that. But I was mortified, and it stayed with me, you know, and I'd say that it stayed with me for, like Nikki, we've been married 24 years next week, and so we met at the Olympics after the competition had all finished, you know, but it was still with me, you know. Really? And still, I think, you know, like certain times, I'm not saying that I woke up in cold sweats, but it wasn't far off at one stage, you know.
Yeah, I bet, because like you've literally dedicated your whole life to this, right? As a young boy coming down to London, this is not like, it's not a normal thing to do, is it? It's not like you've got a job and gone on, like, to commit that much. It's got to carry a lot of weight, innit, when it's over. And
there's not many, I guess, that get, you know, you talk about the Olympic Games, you know, and you see parents with their kids, and they go, "Oh, I've got a world beater here," you know, and but they don't really know the different levels that are out there, you know. I've got a world beater is a pretty broad comment to make, you know, or my kid's going to do it, you know, and you don't know what's out there. And that's why I said to you, when I went out there in 1974, you know, for this cadet European Championships, and then I suddenly realized it wasn't just about what's here in these, like, you know, there was more out there, and there's different levels. And you know, we have people that compete internationally. You know, I am an international fighter and stuff like that, and they might go out there and compete internationally. And winning a world or European medal is one thing. Winning a world or European title is another thing. Winning an Olympic gold medal is, you know, it's different increments of speciality. And
well, going back to, sorry to cut you off there, but going back to Owen, he said that as well, because he won a Commonwealth Games gold. Yeah. And he said the level from the going to the Commonwealths and to the Olympics. I said, is there much of a deal, or whatever I said, massive. And he was like, oh, it's massive. Yeah. Like, and like he was explaining the do's and don'ts of competing and all this kind of stuff. And it was really interesting to listen to. But like, I think there is an element of, I tell you what drives me nuts when I see it as well, is parents that are pushing their kid when either the kid's not really up to it or the kid's not that into it, which is even worse. Whereas the parent doesn't train. That's what I find hard. I go, you don't really know what that kid's experiencing.
Well, I used to keep the parents. So I was in charge of the cadet squad for 7 years. That was my introduction into coaching. You know, so when I finished competing, and that was great for me. And I was working with some of the older coaches, full of experience, you know, and that's the way it should be. You know, we should go in there and we should be all part of the learning process, start at the bottom, you know, and work our way up. And I remember we go in, and of course with cadets come parents. They're all all these parents, you know, with their potential world champion, right? And so we turned up. This meeting, and he'd get a meeting. I want a meeting with all the squad and all the parents. So we got all the parents there like that. And he'd say, right, this is how it's going to be, right? And tell them exactly how it's going to be, right? And one of the things was, if I find out that we're going to test the weights, so progression of weights when you're a cadet, like mine, you know, like so if you keep the weight down, it can do harm, really bad harm, right? Okay. And especially from a parent that doesn't really know what they're doing, right? Okay. Or they might be a coach, but low level coach. but keeping weight down. So the first thing was, if I find out that you're keeping their weight down, they'll just be taken out of the squad and they won't be allowed to compete, you know, and also you'll be out, you know. So that was one thing. The other thing is that, you know, verbal, so just told how they're going to behave, right? And that no unacceptable behaviour.
It's good to set a precedent early like that, I think, isn't it? Because otherwise it can turn into.
And I thought about that. I thought, yeah, that's how it is. Right? Yeah. It's got to be, and it's not that we don't need parents. We do.
Right.
All right. So the other thing he said to them, he says, we really need you guys, because without you, all of these cadets are not going to get around everywhere, right?
Right.
Right. So we really need you. You know?
Yeah.
But you got to know.
You got to be educated on the matter.
Got to be educated, and anybody shouting, all right. So we would always, we'd never have them in there.
Right. Well, I bet something you've run into too is a parent giving the wrong advice, right? And you're like, hey,
no,
hey.
Well, not for long anyway.
Right. No, I was going to say, you've
not
got
for long, because then I'd get them out, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
finished.
interesting.
Yeah, go on.
That's interesting. I'll tell you what's an interesting question for me, because I hear different ages from different backgrounds, but also different people in terms of just the way they did things, I guess. Like, what age do you feel like you was at your peak? Like physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever?
The best match, I did Europeans. I mean, I did 7 European. I had 7 European gold medals, right? Wow. So 7 times the Europeans fighting world Olympic medalists, gold, you know, in each one of them. I had some good matches, some good ones. I had 1 Europeans that I should have won, absolutely 100%, and the rules went against me. And I had 1 European title that I shouldn't have won.
Right.
Yeah, just everything was in my favour. I just, you know, I was lucky. Lucky in as that, I mean, I still had to have the ability, but I was really fortunate. A couple of matches, really fortunate. Anyway, but that's the way it was, right? But I never lost a European final. World Championships, the one that I won, I knew I wasn't going to lose.
Right.
100%. I was just ripping in and just felt great. I had nothing in my mind, you know, other than, you know, and I just knew I was going to win it. The World Championships afterwards, the next one, as defending champion, I was better than I was at the other one.
Really?
I was, physically better. I was physically better.
Yeah.
Older a little bit, you know, more, and then lost that split decision in the final. But I was definitely better than I was 2 years previous. And then, you know, I had the ones that were bad luck, you know, the Olympic gold medal match.
Yeah.
And the other one, the other gold medal match that I lost against Vinica, unseeded. I beat all the seeds, top seeds, was winning the final like 3/4 through, and, you know, on a bad day, or I wasn't having a good day at all. And I was winning the final and it was all going according to plan, and then I made a mistake.
What was the mistake?
Well, the mistake was I literally was on the edge of the area and stopped because I was thinking the referee had stopped the match, and then he turned in and caught me, and I lost the match, you know, and I just, against somebody who was unseeded. I beat him a month earlier at the European Championships.
Funny how things work out, and you're giving me pins and
needles,
like thinking about it, yeah.
So, you know, you look at it like that, and so some I went in absolutely dead, 100%, you know, felt, and then others, I remember my dad, sometimes he'd go, I think we got a bit of spade work today, you know, and you'd just be off, and you like a little bit of something off there, coordination just a little bit off, you know, and then your tactics, more tactics, or your fitness would come into play, and you just grind your way through a day.
Yeah, and sometimes I would imagine, I'm not talking for you, but like when you've got a long day ahead, if the first match is hard, that's got to be quite a mental toll, right? Of like,
I used to rely on going through quickly, you know, because I looked for Ippon. I was throwing for Ippon. I wasn't looking for tactics. Right. I wanted to win before, you know, like Tyson going in, they want to knock everybody out, you know. So if I had to go time a few times, then my condition, you know, dropped. Luckily, I had great condition. Yeah. You know, and I trained hard. I was a really good trainer. Yeah. So when I had to call on it, I did.
And when you go through these like competitions back in the day, are most of the people you're competing against full-time athletes? This is what they do. They're all full-time.
All of them. Yeah. At the high level.
That's what I mean. Yeah, they're not like a brickie.
No. In British Open, sometimes we'd pull some of the journeymen. Some of the guys that are just in there to have a crack at you. You know, and then and that's when we're saying about the differential in levels then. And then you'd work your way through most of those and get rid of them before time. And then you'd have one or two really good ones to win the gold.
Well, and your competing days were with leg grabs as well. So it's a little bit different.
And I didn't rely on them,
Right.
so I learned to defend them, so it wasn't as though, it was a good thing for me.
Right.
I mean, because I had to cope with it.
Yeah.
But I still did upright judo, and I didn't do leg grabs myself, hardly ever.
That's it. And could you say in your book as well, you went for, I think you lost on the ground in a particular match, and it changed the way you trained.
1978, and a final of the British Open, I went up a weight category to fight in the next weight for harder matches.
Right, is that what it was?
Yeah, and then in the final I fought a Frenchman, Gilbert, and I was 2 scores, bang, everything going according to plan, and then he just caught me with something on the ground that I hadn't seen. And I defended. I didn't defend. I just was sat there perfectly for him, and he just caught me with something I hadn't seen. And then I said, I'm never, it was my inspiration then. I remember sitting at the side, and I was devastated, right? I was devastated. And a guy called Brian Perriman, who was part of my judo club, very, very wise kind of guy. And he came up to me and he said, you needed that, and walked off, right? So, and I went, well, what does he mean I needed that? You know what I mean? But he was right, it was the best lesson for me. And I never lost on the ground after that.
And what did you do in terms of it?
Or anything?
Never ever lost on the ground again?
No, I never. I mean, the odd time I got, so in practice sometimes, if you're like really good, and there was people, good groundwork people, you get caught, but never, not even close in competition. And one of the reasons is because I would never let anybody get my back.
Right.
And of course you get that. That's one of the basic things now in Jiu Jitsu. I mean, they don't let people get their back. But when I'm doing the judo for Jiu Jitsu, I did one seminar in the United States, 2 really good Jiu Jitsu coaches. And they said, we would never let people get our back, right? So I did the lesson. I did a whole lesson, and I got them involved as well. And just throws where you turn your back, like so, and if you're not using your hands properly, right? So somebody defends, right? So immediately drop to your knees, right? If you haven't got good control with, so they would drop into their knees, right? And the one looked at me and he went, now I get it, all right? So now I understand. So that's how we get the back, right? So we get the turtle position because we failed techniques.
Okay.
It's failed technique. So if you drop shoulder throw or shoulder throw and I kill it, I've got your back, immediately. And that's how it comes, right? So they understood, that with judo rules, it's a little bit different.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting because I think a lot of people, they fall in the trap of like, I wouldn't do that because it put me in this position, but it's wrong.
I said, but I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But I just put them in a situation where they were doing, so I did the whole throw and taught them the throw and how to do it, and hands got to work this way. And of course, when they did it with the movement and they failed and they dropped.
That makes sense. Gotcha.
but then he got it, right? And then he went, now I get it. So you can never say never because the rules will dictate which way you come into it.
Right.
But that's why we got to be quicker for the transition, right? So if we don't go in and get it, and now that we've got it, so say I hook in and I'm going for your arm, I've got more time. As long as I make it continuous and progressive, they'll let me do it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you've become, since I mentioned it at the top, the voice of judo. Like when you finished let's say day one, I know it's a bit extreme, but day one you've retired, if you like, from competing in judo. Like, what's in your mind at this point? Are you thinking I'm going to do X, Y, Z?
Yeah, which direction? So I think most are thinking coaching, or, you get the odd ones that are really clever university guys, to go something completely different than judo, right? So it's either coaching or... And then I got asked, so I did the coaching side, and so that's been really beneficial for me. And I went for the cadets, and we did the cadets, and then I took over the GB team. I coached the Belgian national team as well. Okay. So I did GB for 4 years, Belgian national team for 4 years. I did my kind of apprenticeship there. But the voice work came by accident, and actually they Fighting Films, who now work with me in conjunction with the International Judo Federation. They work with them. Fighting Films were a fighting films group that made films just for learning process, for technical films. And so they would get European Championships or World Championships and all the categories, and then I would do kind of a voiceover for it, but it was a narration. It wasn't commentary. It was a narration. And the first one they put together was my World Championships that I won. So I narrated my own World Championship. That was the first time, 1981. 1982 I did it, and then they said, "Oh, we're going to the World Championships. All right, and we're going to be live, we're going to do it. Would you be able to commentate it?" So that was the first time I commentated at any competition. And, it was all right, but it wasn't any great shakes. And I didn't have any kind of knowledge of doing it or presentation. It's just like anything, really. You just learn to present it better and learn how to explain it. And then I just got better and better as I went through it. And then understanding the difference between narration and commentary is important, right? Because it's pace. And so if I narrate, if you get some of the best narrators are, think of the documentary narrators, the obvious ones, right? And that are just so good at and they have a nice pace, and it's steady, and they're almost talking to you with what they're doing. And then the commentary is coming from the heart, right? So they're like, so I remember I was just in there, and I was like, yeah, right there, and that was fantastic. And I was like getting into it, and I loved it. And I remember there was a guy called Koga. Koga did this kind of one-handed Seoinage, that because they wouldn't give him the second hand, so he'd do it one-handed. And he was fighting a North Korean called Chang-Soo Lee, and Chang-Soo Lee. It's the semi-final of the World Championships, and I'm commentating it, and Chang-Soo Lee had beaten everybody by Ippon all the way through, and Koga had thrown everybody, and I said, and I was like, yes, this is it, it's going to happen, and brilliant, and he starts it, and I'm talking, and I'm explaining what, and they're fighting for grip, and then he just whacks this one-handed Seoinage in. Chang-Soo Lee nearly went through the ceiling, right? And he managed to do, so normally you need two hands, Kazushi hand, which is the sleeve hand, and this one here, which is the lapel hand, controls it all the way over. He just had this one on, and he just went up like that, and he pulls it in, and he does both actions with this hand here. And I went, yeah, I did it one-handed like that, and I'd just gone off on one. And of course, everybody loved it, because it was really from the heart, it was absolutely from the heart. But, so I guess that's my thing, is that I get excited a little bit about it, but it is really from the heart because I love judo.
Well, people like passion, don't they? No one wants to listen to a robot for long.
No, and somebody said to me, they said, so the difference between my commentary, and this is something I'm pretty proud of now, is that there's two kinds of commentary. You commentate what you see, right? So we'll watch the 100 meters, and they're starting off here, and in lane 1, lane 5, and they're off, and then they go running down, and then they get through there, and we're commentating what we can see. We can all see that, all right? But actually, what you want to hear is the build-up, right? And what's going through their heads, and the last conversation you had with Alan Wells, who's just lining up there, and he's just about to go. That shows my age, doesn't it, Alan Wells? Anyway, but and you want to hear, some of the in-depth stuff, and a little bit of what's happening inside.
Yeah.
And so if I'm commentating so actually I could commentate the Jiu Jitsu. Like, not the sport jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu on the floor. And it was great because I could say, what's happening here underneath there, and he's got the hand in, and this is happening, and, so at least I could give a bit of insight as to what they couldn't see.
But I'll tell you what as well, I think there's sort of an element of you'd like to listen to sort of a knowledgeable friend talk about it, if that makes sense. So it's you're not just step 1, 2, 3. There's an element of he's doing this and he's got it, and like we're sitting here talking now. I think there's that goes a long way, when you're watching things, because it's got to be, at the end of the day, we watch sport for fun anyway, don't we? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And if you come away with something, at the end of it, that's a great thing. I think that's, and what do people love? People love, when we have something about, and it could be Koga, or it could be any of the great champions, Teddy Riner at home. This is what he does when he's not here, and everybody loves that, go behind the scenes. And then when you find out what somebody's like, and you find out, well, they're a bit human, they are human after all, know.
When you know a little bit about someone, I think it's easier to get involved with it, because you could be two great fighters fighting in any kind of combat. If you don't know who they are, there's still an element of whatever, right? Whereas if you know them, if, I don't know, like Floyd Mayweather's making a comeback, you know who he is, right? You're looking at it, you're going to watch it because of a lot more than just
you want to see it, don't you? You want to see how he's ducking and diving, how he's going to, and then how he's going to snag it. Yeah, I agree with you. And it makes it interesting, and hopefully, I've been doing it a long time now. I don't know how much longer I'm going to carry on. But,
forever.
At least the next Olympics, the one after, I want to carry on too. Probably, I can't see it.
That's brilliant. That's good. And for you, who's, you'll know obviously infinitely more than me, who is the best judoka of all time in your opinion?
It's a really, it's a difficult question, because you get Teddy Riner as the best winner we've ever had. So he's been 10-time, 11-time world champion, 3-time Olympic champion. Nobody will ever beat that. Right. They will never be able to beat that, So he's just a winner, And I've commentated him all the way through since when he was a junior. Saying, people need to do this, or how are they going to beat it, and actually finds a way of winning, and actually at the last Olympic Games, he came back after losing the previous Olympic Games with the best performance he'd ever had.
Is that right?
Yeah, wow, okay. He did. And I took my hat off and I went, that is, pretty, I mean, that for anybody to keep going mentally for that long and physically at that level. And so the best winner, not the best judoka, the best, but how do you assess that? The best judoka is, from a technical point of view, we've had some really great technicians, like Abe's, from male and female, best judo, looks beautiful, the technique working perfectly, the shape of the technique, a bit like watching a gymnast do a round off backflip, back somersault, or somebody on a trampoline throwing it, and you see them landing it every time, and you go, that looks spot on, you know what I mean? That or a goal from, halfway mark, and he hits it, and it rockets into the back of the net, and you go, that was it, that was amazing. Was it the best of all time? No, because George Best, would go like this, or Cruyff, or whoever it was, showing my age again. All right, and gets it in there to a different way.
Yeah.
I think Yamashita was one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, technically. Renier, one of the best of all time, definitely. Koga, one of the best throwers of all time. Abe's best throwers, with Ono. Ono was, just incredible. Not my idea of a complete judo person for different reasons, but they all and I think that when you look at it from different ways, somebody who was good standing down to ground and, you know, had the all over game, you know what I mean? And I like to think of myself as being an all over. If people ever reference me, I'd like to think that I won as many on the ground as I did standing.
Right, okay, which is hard to do, isn't it? Because styles play in massively, don't they, to people, you know what I mean? And there's sort of a, I don't know what you'd call it, but there's the option of sort of someone who's such a specialist and they've not one move, but you know what I'm saying, like they've got one move that they're elite at and you can't do anything about, versus people that are good at everything. There's that constant sort of balance, isn't it?
And if you think about it, I mean, that's, you know, the way we teach. I mean, so if plan A doesn't work, you go to plan B, right?
Right.
And actually, you know, when I commentate, and I see sometimes they go in the same direction all the time, but it's the ones that can just switch it up. And, you know, and sometimes they'll say it, you know, when's it going to switch to plan B here, you know, and then you see them switch to the other side, or it might be the other side or the other flank, or, you know, you attack one flank and then bring it back over here, and then the transition down. So I like to see the all over. And I think we're going to see some great groundwork people coming out of this new set of rules. The interpretation. It's not the rules, it's the interpretation.
Yeah, so the interpretation of rules, like when things change slightly, does the top guys in the world change that drastically, or is it
immediately they train it, and because the referees, the top referees in the world, top 20 are going to all the events.
Right.
But their interpretation to the next level is something, exactly.
It's an interesting,
it's really interesting,
goes
right?
up and
Okay,
down.
then you've got problems.
Right.
So that's why when you have certain rules, they can't be too. So you can have the top flight there, and they'll read a match and they'll go with the flow. You know, of the match to make it interesting for us.
Common sense type approach.
Common sense, right? But actually, with you know, when it goes lower level, you're talking about not really knowing, you know. So then you need a line.
Okay, it has to be to the book then, and no messing around. Yeah, right, that makes sense. But Neil, listen, this has been brilliant, man.
It's
I really
been fantastic.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We could have gone on and on.
I could go on and on, but I'll save a bit. Maybe we'll get an episode 2 at some point.
Right,
you know.
okay.
And please, if there's any seminars, let me know. I'd love to be in attendance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before we finish, most important question of the day: which football team do you support?
Well, I have to say Chelsea.
Oh, my man, top man.
The reason it's Chelsea, I tell you now, right? And the reason it's Chelsea is because we were just down the road. Budokai's just down the road.
Yes, we was.
And I had the physio used to help me out.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing with Chelsea, I'm a massive Chelsea fan.
Oh, right.
Like, if Chelsea are at home, I can't make my Saturday session at the Budokai. But
is that right?
It's all good, because the roads are closed coming from my end.
So right, there we go. Same reasons.
But there you go. But as I say, thank you so
very much, mate. Thank you.
I always finish with a fist up like this, mate. Squeeze the neck. Boom!